Welcome to the City Manager's Report. The City Manager's Report, a look at city updates and municipal news, and a preview of the next Oshkosh Common Council meeting agenda. Your hosts, Emily Springstroh of Oshkosh Media, and City Manager Mark Rohloff.
Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us on GovTV for your City Manager's Report, your source for the latest and greatest news and updates here in the city of Oshkosh, as well as a preview of the upcoming Common Council meeting agenda. I'm your host, Emily Springstroh, joined as always by our City Manager, Mark Rohloff. Thanks for joining us today, Mark.
Great to be here, Emily.
So today we're going to go ahead and dive into our hot topics for the first half of today's show, take a little break, and then return with a review of the Common Council meeting agenda for Tuesday, October 10th, 2017. So, Mark, of course, the very first topic that we want to hit here, we had a joint meeting between Parks and the Plan Commission yesterday, and this is all about Lakeshore. It's a huge topic of conversation here in Oshkosh. Kind of just give us a little bit of a recap of how that meeting went yesterday.
Well, this whole process, is obviously, on a very tight time schedule. As Alan Davis, our Community Development Director, explained, whenever you're in the mode of being in competition for a project of this nature, there's a lot of tight timelines that are put out there. I think in this case, because it's a home company, there's an expectation that it'll be different, but it really isn't. These companies work on a very tight time frame. They're trying to get their budgets established for the next year, get their board approval, and our understanding is that Oshkosh Corporation would like to make a recommendation on a selected site to their board of directors in November. So what we're trying to do is put together a proposal that they might consider. I know there's a lot of people who are genuine in their beliefs that think that some of this is already wired, but the reality is that we're on a very tight time frame. There is no guarantee that we're going to be the successful location. I certainly want to do everything in my power to make sure that we can retain Oshkosh Corp headquarters, but it's not a done deal. It's not a given either. And so the whole idea was that the Parks Board and the Plan Commission have a role in this process. And while it wasn't immediately being asked of them, we wanted to give them good background. We invited other boards and commissions to attend, and there were members of the general public. And I'd say, all told, last night there were probably 40 to 50 people there. It's a divisive issue, and I understand that. And there are people that are proposing ideas on both sides of the issue. One group wanting to retain Lakeshore as it is, another group wanting to set aside a site for Oshkosh Corporation, and then what do you do with the remainder of that site? So the idea last night was to give both the Plan Commission and Parks Advisory Board an idea of conceptually what this might look like. Not asking for specific decisions on that, because we're way, way ahead of ourselves if we do that. We don't even know if we're going with it. But I think it's getting people to think ahead of what the possibilities could be. So that's kind of what the whole layout was. There were people there. The public was allowed to comment, and they provided very well thought out opinions on both sides of the issue. I have a great deal of respect for everybody on this. I get a little disappointed when people start to think there's big conspiracies. The real reality is that people feel very strongly about an issue, and they have a right to do that, and I think we have to keep doing that in a civil tone. The meeting was very civil. There may be some stuff out on social media and that, but for the most part, the meetings, both before the council as well as before the commissions here, I think we're very respectful of each other's opinion. Mm-hmm.
So we were able to take a look at the two plans, or the two concept maps, take a look and see what some of the details on those were, get public input. Like you said, some of the main themes throughout there is the retention of that public green space.
Public green space is clearly an issue. I mean, there are some people who don't think we should sell anything at all because we don't have a lot of parkland. That's a fact, and those folks are bringing it up, and you can't argue with that. So the idea with concept one, which is, I don't know if it's necessarily an extreme, but on one end of the spectrum is only using 30 acres for potential Oshkosh Corp site, and then the remainder is almost exclusively public parkland. And then there's concept 2, which says, well, maybe we could do a little more development on that. It would certainly be better for the tax base, but it would certainly cut into more of the public space. And so from my observations, the concept 1 seems to be the one that's most favored. Council has to take that into consideration. But it's real important to point out it's not an either or. There are some people throwing out ideas trying to figure out a way to preserve the golf course or a 9-hole golf course. Well, those things can still be vetted out. It's just that we want to get people thinking about what possibilities could exist if the city were to do something like this. And that was the real purpose of getting the concept out there, because that's going to be a very important decision. It's adjacent to Mary Jewel Park, and it's also adjacent to Rainbow Park. So here's a 3D visualization. Now it's looking south, but you can see kind of where the 30 acres are, what the footprint of a building might be, a footprint of a parking lot, and then what would be done with the remainder of the site. This 3D visualization assumes concept 1. We only asked Halcyon Levine to do one of those. So we're gonna, continue to take public input. We have another public input session scheduled for this week prior to having a similar report to council at Tuesday's meeting, so they can see that and get a first-hand account from Halcyon Levine. And I think we're going to have members of the public at these meetings until such time as a decision is made. And that's certainly, everybody's right to do that. And I think, you're getting good input, even though people may not agree on everything. They try to reach common ground, and I think that's great that we try to do that, because I know this is a tough pill to swallow for us, but it's one I think is necessary for us to have this discussion, regardless what the outcome is.
Mm-hmm. And then finally, one of the biggest questions was the schedule and the timing. If you could kind of respond to why the timeline is so short.
Well, Oshkosh Corporation needs to make a decision for their board of directors by mid-November, and that's the timeline that they've laid out. If we want to be considered, just like every other company or every other community in the country, I don't know who these other competing sites are, but most, if not all, of the other ones are outside of the state of Wisconsin, and they're complying with the schedule. If we want to be considered, we don't get extra credit for being the home turf right now. There is no home field advantage, so we have to comply with those things. But I think one of the outcomes of last evening's, both the Parks Board and the Plan Commissioners, regardless of where they stood on the issue, felt that they would like to provide some input to council prior to them taking any formal proposal or tentative memorandum of understanding or terms or conditions, and I think we can accommodate that for both of them. And that certainly, I'm going to make that observation to council, and I think between now and Tuesday, the council will probably have heard back on that issue anyway.
Excellent. Well, thank you for the recap on that joint meeting. It sounds like there was some really great discussion. Of course, we're still looking for input from the public. So to view the plans that we just showed on screen, it's kind of hard to see. You can go to the city website under the hot topics. Both those plans, concepts are there. There's an opportunity to voice your opinion for public input. Just click on that. It's a form, and you can give your input on this specific item here. So thank you for all the people who have been involved up to this point, and we look forward to a lot more good discussion in the future.
The website also has the timeline, and so I'd encourage
Yes.
people to take a look at the timeline, because it'll give you an idea. But we have to have a couple closed sessions because we have to negotiate things. People ask us why we can't tell the public the value. I have no problem telling the public the value, but they can't necessarily keep a secret that we need to protect our interests with Oshkosh Corporation. While we think they're a great partner, we are negotiating, and so I hope people understand why we can't tell them, because we tell them, we tell everyone, and we need to protect our financial interests for the city. So we're really protecting the taxpayers in this, because certainly whatever we negotiate, we want to negotiate what's maximum benefit for the city.
Definitely. Well, thank you for that update, Mark, and the information. So moving on to the next item that we had here on a different, going in a different direction here, is some fun upcoming fall events for the Parks Department. And that is first the Zulaween Boo, which is for the kids, coming up on October 21st and 22nd. A great opportunity for the kids to have a safe trick-or-treating experience out at the Menominee Park Zoo. A lot of fun games, costume contests, all kinds of things. Really looking forward to it.
Jenny McCallion with our Parks Department has done a wonderful job putting this together. I think every year there's a new generation of kids to enjoy this event. If you haven't gone to it, I absolutely recommend it. And if you have gone to it, you know that it's fun and you can bring your kids back year in, year out. So just get the tickets over at the Parks Department or get them at Festi. We're happy to accommodate people, and hopefully the weather will be good and everybody will have a great time.
Yes, and if any of us adults are jealous of the kids getting to go out to Menominee Park and do a fun Halloween event, there's something for us too. It's the Monster Bash at the Oshkosh Zoo. That is to benefit the Oshkosh Zoo Society. That's on Saturday on the 21st, so it's kind of an after hours of the Zooloween Boo. And for adults, so it's kind of the same idea, costume contest, a lot of fun things, silent auction, adult trick-or-treating station. So I don't know what kind of prizes or tricks or treats they're handing out there.
I don't know, but certainly it's for adults, and it's a great fundraiser for the Zoo Society, and those are the funds that are used to make improvements to the different exhibits at the zoo. The Zoological Society is a wonderful partner with us to expand the zoo, and so it's a great cause, and please go to it if you can.
Yes. Moving on, the Riverwalk grant. This was actually on last council meeting agenda, and we didn't get a chance to really highlight it. So we want to talk about a really exciting addition that's going to be happening to the Riverwalk a lot faster than we thought it was going to be happening.
Everybody knows how excited I get when we talk about the Riverwalk, and I just didn't think, I wasn't on the last show, and I was like, we got to do more of this, and there were so many other things going on, but we had some bids that came in so well that we are going to be able to get with this next contract the entire length of the Riverwalk from Oregon Street west over to where the bridge that we had built a couple years ago will connect with the bridge. So the entire Riverwalk loop from the Jackson Street Bridge over to the Wisconsin Street Bridge will be done. And you can see on the east side of Oregon, just last year, we completed that part from Oregon over to where Dockside is. And Dockside's put a little stuff over there for them as well. We're getting real close to get over to Main Street, but this part we always thought would be tough. We got some early seawall work done in the area shown in red, but now, because the bids came in so much better than we ever could imagine, this entire length is going to be done beginning late this year, which I don't think a lot will get done this year, but we gave the contractor the entire 2018 construction season to get this done. So I envision that this time next year, this entire section of the Riverwalk will be done. So we are so excited about this, and appreciate the cooperation of our the owners of the Morgan District to give us an easement for this. And I can't wait to enjoy this part of the Riverwalk, which people will really get to enjoy the bridge, because you get a dead end and you turn around.
Right.
Now you'll be able to continue down through the bridge into the Morgan property, into a full loop. If you're between Wisconsin and Jackson, you'll be able to do a full loop, walk, run, whatever floats your boat. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
We're so excited to see progress on the Riverwalk, and we're so excited to see the work happening down there and no longer have a bridge to nowhere, right? That everybody jokes about.
Oh gosh, yeah.
The one other thing that we wanted to talk about in the first half real quickly is leaf collection is beginning on October 16th. I know some of the leaves are already starting to fall, so make sure you're aware that that's not happening until the 16th, but it's same rules go. It's the day after your garbage collection day. Please do not rake the leaves into the street. That's always the biggest thing for us.
It's really a safety issue. So yeah, keep them on the terrace. We'll get them off there for you.
Definitely. So just take a look at the city website for more information if you'd like a calendar of all the days that you can take advantage of that and when it will be going through into November, I believe. So now it's that part of the show where viewers have the chance to ask their city manager anything they'd like about things that are happening right here in Oshkosh, and that is question mark. So let's go ahead and see what the question is this week. All right, Mark, question this week is, what is the update on both of the Murdoch Ave construction projects?
You couldn't just ask about one, huh? Well, there's two projects. If you don't travel Murdoch much, you may not be aware of this, but there's actually two projects going on Murdoch. And it's probably, to quote Dickens, it's a tale of two projects, paraphrase Dickens, I guess. West Murdoch, things are going very well. By the time most of you are watching this show, that section of Murdoch between Algoma and Vinland will be open to traffic. The painting is not going to get done immediately. That's all weather dependent, and we can't get the paint out right now, but by the time some of you may see this, it may get done. But please be careful, because remember, that got changed over to a road diet a couple years ago. So please be cautious as you're on Murdoch, and be respectful of your oncoming traffic. But that's open. That project went very well and is actually ahead of schedule.
Excellent.
Unfortunately, that contrasts with what's going on East Murdoch, and we've got several issues out there. This is between Harrison Street, which is very close to the railroad tracks, and then Bowen Street. And the issue there is we've got some private utilities non-city utilities that we have to take care of issues there. And we've encountered more problems, things that we weren't aware of that are in private utilities that we're trying to get worked out. Additionally, whenever you're dealing with the railroad, anything is difficult, and they've had some issues in other states where they're being much more cautious. So railroad utility location is a problem. Unfortunately, I fear that project is not going to get done until into next year. We'll have to make accommodations to open it up for traffic throughout the winter, but the inconvenience, unfortunately, is going to continue. So I ask everybody just to be patient. It'll get done, but not as quickly. But we need to work with the businesses to make sure that they have good access in and out of their businesses. Mm-hmm. Certainly like the Piggly Wigglies over there, we want to make sure that residents who want to go grocery shopping can get in there, and we want to be respectful of everybody. So be patient, and we'll get it done. But sometimes those things happen. So on one side, you had a really good outcome. The other one, it's not so hot right now.
Great. Well, thanks for the update, Mark. And of course, if you'd like those updates sent directly to your inbox, just check out the city website under the Public Works tab, and they have, for each project, you can go ahead and subscribe for an email subscription and get updates on those projects sent directly to you. So great question this week. If you'd like to send a question to Mark, have it answered on City Manager's Report, you can send it to us on Twitter, post it on the Oshkosh Media Facebook wall, or email it to us, and he will answer it on the next episode of City Manager's Report. So we're going to take a quick break here, and when we come back, we'll dive into the Common Council meeting agenda for Tuesday, October 10th. We'll be right back on City Manager's Report.
Hi, I'm Jim Michelson, Chairman of the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. The Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee is made up of 7 resident representatives from the City of Oshkosh. We strive to promote and encourage safe bicycle and walking as significant means of transportation in the City of Oshkosh. Our committee goals involve working towards the development of a coordinated system of safe and convenient bikeways and walkways, and stimulation of public awareness through educational events. Our committee is tasked with reviewing and updating the bicycle and pedestrian circulation plan and recommend projects for funding through the city's capital improvement plan. We aim to make Oshkosh a bike and pedestrian friendly city and are making strides in protecting and growing the biking and walking population. The Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee and many other boards and committees who serve the City of Oshkosh are an extremely important part of our local government and community. We encourage you to consider serving on a city board or commission to help make Oshkosh a great place to live, work, and play.
Welcome back to City Manager's Report. Thanks again for joining us. We're in the second half of today's show, and we're going to go ahead and dive into the Common Council meeting agenda for Tuesday, October 10th, 2017. So, Mark, first thing that we wanted to highlight is one of the presentations that will be taking place that evening, and that is Professor David Fuller on the impact of EAA on the local economy. And this is kind of discussing some of the special event fee issues and that kind of thing. So tell us a little bit about what he'll be talking about.
Well, we were very fortunate to have a representative from EAA, Dave Gelzer, their legal counsel, on the stakeholders group that we had. And during that discussion, Mr. Gelzer and I discussed this study that EAA had commission from Professor Fuller. And it really just talks about in general how EAA benefits the overall economy. Now, some of those benefits go beyond the borders of the city of Oshkosh, but they absolutely have a wonderful positive impact on our community, and we appreciate that. And before the council takes any action with respect to special event fees, he asked that they give council give Mr. Fuller an opportunity to make a presentation. So council has honored that request, and just to talk about how it does impact, maybe things we don't think about, but we want to talk about the positive impact and appreciate the wonderful folks that EAA are in our community, and they do have a great impact on our economy and our community in general.
Definitely. Well, we're looking forward to the presentation, hearing a little bit more of the details and information that he'll have to share with us. Next down under a consent agenda, we have a couple of items relating to each other, and that's the approval of the determination of necessity to acquire 132 West 9th Ave, and then also the authorization for the redevelopment authority to acquire it, that property, and 117 West 8th Ave. So kind of go through what exactly this means and what the plans are for these properties.
This is in our South Shore redevelopment area, so when we see an opportunity to acquire lands that we might be able to land bank for future development, we do that. So the map here shows the two locations, and these are both properties that we're able to acquire for less than their assessed value. So it represents a good value for the redevelopment authority, and the Common Council is required to approve purchases by the redevelopment authority because we help fund some of those things. But we'll land bank these for future development, and hopefully as time goes on, we'll be able to resell these and put them back on the tax roll for higher and better value than we acquired it at.
Excellent. Moving on, under new resolutions, approval of the employee health and dental insurance agreements applications. What exactly is changing in the plan this year? And Mark, how does it affect our budget? How does this play into the budget?
Well, what we did is we've competitively bid our insurance periodically, and it's time for us to do this. And we competitively bid it, and the program that we've identified is through Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield for us, but it represents a 4.6% reduction in our costs over what we're paying for this year. So that's probably about a $400,000 savings, and that will help us balance our 2018 budget, which council is going to get next week. So we're putting that assumption in our budget. There's really no change in the benefits themselves. It just changes who we're going to be using as far as our network providers, but it's going to be a good value for the city, and it will absolutely help balance our budget, because originally we were anticipating an 8% increase, and now we're actually getting a 4.6% decrease. So
good news.
It's really wonderful news for us.
Excellent. And then the item immediately following that is approval of the charges for extraordinary services for special events. Now, this has been an ongoing conversation as well. It's a big issue. What's being approved here?
We had some stakeholders who represented a lot of the different special events that we have, and they worked with us throughout the summer, giving us input on how fees should look like, how they can be better understood, which is probably the biggest thing. Council had a workshop, I believe it was in September, and we're bringing the fees for 2018, which was the goal all along. We want to incorporate that into the budget, so we've got this in there for our budget assumptions and asking council to approve these. And while they weren't necessarily blessed by the committee or this stakeholders group, they certainly reflect the concerns that they had.
Great. Moving on down to the last part of the meeting agenda here under City Manager announcements and statements, we've got recognition of a couple of neighborhood associations, which is always great news, and that is the Sacred Heart District as well as the Congress Field Neighborhood Association. So congratulations to them.
Yeah, well, we've got some maps to show people, because you may live in some of these areas and not know, maybe you didn't go to a meeting or something, but the Sacred Heart District is really near Sacred Heart Church over there on Knapp Street, and you can see it's between Knapp and Dakota, and then West 4th and West 9th. And I guess the neighbors decided, because Sacred Heart's been there for so long, that was the rallying point for the entire area. So we're happy to see them form a neighborhood association. I was able to go out there with Police Chief Smith and Fire Chief Franz during National Night Out. A very engaged neighborhood. They fed us well, so they're great, wonderful people, but they're truly engaged. It was an old-fashioned neighborhood type of feel to it, and they genuinely care about issues in their community. Similarly, the Congress Field, again, a rallying point. Congress Field is right there in the middle of the neighborhood there. It's Congress down to New York and Elmwood over to Wisconsin on the north side, and that's their place where their kids have gone to play or practice for Eagles football or see some of the extra intramurals for UW Oshkosh. But this is their neighborhood. I think the residential folks in the neighborhood, the owner occupants, really want to get a point where they can work together to clean up the neighborhood and make it a better place to live and encourage more people. So we're excited that they're creating these things. So, and there's our ad.
We've got to get that out there.
Call Stephen or Alexa at 236-5059. If maybe you're thinking that maybe you want a neighborhood association in your neighborhood, they will help you create that, and we're more than happy to assist you and make it.
It's easier than you think, too.
It's tons easier, but we'll make it as easy as possible for you.
Yes, so Steve and Alexa are awesome. They're a great help, and we really, really encourage people to get involved in their neighborhoods and think about possibly starting a neighborhood association or getting involved in the one that you currently live in. One other item that we wanted to talk about, Mark, is the draft TIF materials that are regarding the process, application, and development agreements. So kind of tell us about that, little bit of a follow-up.
These were the results of some workshops that the staff had with council about concerns they had about our process. And so we have some materials for them to review and give us some feedback on. How to engage council in the process earlier. A lot of times we got them towards the end of the process. They want to be more engaged on the front end so that the final product, which is typically a development agreement, that they're more in line with what's going on in the loop on things so that when it gets to them, they have had a little more time to take it all in. Rather than just giving a development agreement at the very end of the process, the idea is to work with the council, even if it requires a closed session for negotiating purposes, to get them in the process earlier. Any concerns they have, we can get them taken care of sooner rather than later, and they'll have a better idea of what the timeline is for the development. We certainly want to work with our development community so that we don't slow down their process, but the council also feels a need to review this stuff a little more closely, and I think that's an appropriate thing. So we're going to update the application. We're going to have some reviewing materials so that council can grade these different types of tax increment financing districts. So some really good input that we got from council. So this is probably the next to final step before we bring it back to have them formally approve these items.
And this conversation has been a long time too, with a lot of the, like you said, the process questions and TIF Districts 101, that kind of thing. So it's good to have an update on that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. There have been some new TIFs that I think have brought this up, and I think council, before we talk about any more TIF districts, they want to make sure that this process is in place, and I think we can do that for them.
Excellent. Well, Mark, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of City Manager's Report. So as always, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, it's been a pleasure.
So again, the Common Council meeting is this Tuesday, October 10th at 6 p.m. You can watch it live on GovTV and on our website at oshkoshmedia.org, or you can listen to it on 101.9 Oshkosh FM, which is also online and on the TuneIn Radio app for mobile devices. Make sure to like Oshkosh Media on Facebook or follow us on Twitter for all of your community and government programming and updates, or check out our YouTube channel for government meeting replays and past episodes of your favorite programs. Don't forget, if you have a question for City Manager Mark Rohloff, send it to us on Twitter, post it on our Facebook page, or email us, and he'll answer it on the next episode of CMR. So as always, thank you again for joining us on City Manager's Report, and we'll see you next time.